Awesome. So, all right. So thank you so much, Amanda, Fabian, and the WRI team for giving me this session. And of course, the participants from across Africa. I'm delighted to be with you. It's evening my time. So I'm very happy to be here with all of us. So my name is Sami Kariuki, and so I am a profession in agribusiness. I've done agribusiness management, both at MSc, BSc, and also MSc level. And before starting a consulting company, I used to work with an export company where I held various positions up to the point of becoming the general manager. And but before I got to be the general manager, I used to be the operations manager, which is very key in terms of supply chain management. And when I went to the general manager's position, that now shows the links, various links with marketing, with finance. So I do have a lot of experience in terms of supply chain management and the importance of the value chain. And beyond that, I've also worked with diverse development agencies, looking at research, market development, and also enterprise development. And the enterprise development, actually supply chain is a key thing that we look for. So I've worked with this Conservation International, IUCN, United Nations, SNV, among others. And I think I'm looking forward to sharing part of my experience with a team that is drawn from across Africa. But now, before we get started, this is going to be a very interactive session. And this is the presentation outline. So I don't know whether, Amanda, you have the first question ready, because I wanted us,
yes,
before we...
First question is ready. I've put it in the chat box. So if everybody could take a break from introducing yourself, and so people can keep the poll link at the bottom, could give a little click on that, and I can start to share that screen if you'd like, Sammy, or just let me know when you'd like me to share that screen of the results.
Yes, I'll let you know.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I think before we go to the question, I know it's important to reflect where we are as a global economy, you know, whether we're in Africa, whether I'm here in Kenya, and of course other African nations where we are all from, or whether we are from other nations, be it the US or, you know, across the world. We are facing an economic downtime in terms of economic growth. And the key question I have for all of us this evening is to ask ourselves, what can we do to make sure that we remain competitive, we remain committed to our customers, we become competitive despite the challenges that we have. And just to give an example, here in Kenya, I know we have some colleagues from Kenya. You know, we have a new finance bill that means fuel costs will be going up. So what does that mean to our businesses? You know, does it mean that we have to go and increase our prices to the consumers? So where will that lead us to? So I think that is the kind of discussion I'm looking at us having. And we have the first question, which I'm asking, the strategies that you aim to employ to make sure that you remain competitive. So yeah, so that is the question. And I think we already have some answers. So we are looking at diversifying. All right. We can give ourselves a few more minutes. You see how the questions are coming.
Yes, and one more time, people, you can check the link, the chat box for the link to click into that. We've got 19 respondents so far, but we've got 60 people on the line, so we'd love to see more participation. You're also able, if you're looking at this from a desktop, you can take a picture of the QR code with your cell phone. So either of those ways are going to work for you today. And people are able to select more than one option as well.
Yeah.
So far, we see some early fast ones in diversifying products and service offerings. And one of them that is, let's see, a couple that are on the slower end are investing in marketing, investing in customer acquisitions. Sammy, how did you select all the options to put on this poll today?
All right, so this is based on, of course, looking at the entire business model, looking at the key components, be it marketing, be it operations. So I wanted to touch on a few areas from marketing to operations, and now did a link it to supply chain management. See, when you are talking of diversification and service offering, you still have to look at supply chain and how you become competitive in that new product that you're diversifying into. When you look at focusing on innovation and research, which I think is also has high at 17, it means that innovation could actually be your supply chain. You can innovate to become more effective in supply chain management. So I think that is what I was looking at when you look at expanding into new markets. So again, those markets, for you to become competitive, you have to supply products. You need to know, how do I enter those new markets? So you see all those actually cuts across the supply chain management. I can see diversification coming in very strongly, which I totally agree with. But of course, you still need to see how best you can diversify and still become competitive, because it's one thing diversifying, is another not becoming competitive, and also maybe having very huge costs. So I've seen also enhancing operational efficiency at number 4. It's something that also we are doing, which I think is also critical, and that still focuses on supply chain management. You think we are done, Amanda?
Yeah, I think we're done. Sorry, I was on mute. It looks like we've got 30 respondents, which is about half of the people here, which is a pretty good, what do you call this? It's a pretty good sample size. Mm-hmm.
Exactly, yes. So I think, as I was just explaining, when you look at, I think the highest one is diversification into new products and product lines. Of course, you'll be able to see how it links with supply chain management and how best you can be able to effectively make sure that you supply efficiently to the markets that you aim to diversify into. In terms of innovation, focusing on innovation, it could actually be supply chain. I think you've seen some companies come on board to support and have very efficient supply chain management that are actually done through digital platforms. So I think we'll look into that. Expanding into new markets. So I think, as I said, it's important to still know, how are you going to get products into the new markets, but of course, in a more efficient way. Also enhancing operational efficiency. I think we will look into that. How do you become more efficient in terms of your supply chain to make sure that you supply quality products at the right time, at the right place, at the cost, at the most cost-effective way. Then also focusing on customer retention. It's 11, which has scored about 11. How do you retain your customers? You need to look at, do they keep complaining about your quality products? Products are not of high quality, and what do we need to do to make sure that we supply, products that are of high quality to customers? Looking at service levels, maybe they have ordered 100 trees, but you only supply 50 trees. So, you're affecting your service levels, and that means that they may not be willing to continue working with you. So the other one is forming strategic partnerships. I think that is something that I've seen being done. And of course, we also did it during the 2008-2009 period. So we actually formed some strategic alliances, either to hold produce from the farms, to cut down on costs. So I think that is another thing that, that can also be looked into. So so I think when you look at maybe the strategies that you are employing in your businesses, all of them actually touches on supply chain management, and I think we'll be able to see how that affects. So thank you so much, Amanda.
Yes.
Yeah, let's proceed now with mine. Yeah. All right. So with that, allow me now to proceed with the presentation. So, and we'll look at the supply chain management, the introduction, the key components, the process flow, the implementation steps, and how you're supposed to go about it, the advantages. So, we look at all that, and also the goals. So, asking ourselves, so what then is supply chain management? And I know here we are a mix of different businesses that actually cuts across, some of these, the entire chain, from the raw materials, that is actually from getting the seed to the supplier of the produce, to your factory, or even somebody supplying you with seedlings, to the manufacturing, those who are involved in manufacturing products, to distribution from your packing houses or your pack houses or factories to the markets, also to the retailers. There are those maybe involved also at the retail section, and also the customer. So you see, there are quite a number of activities that are actually involved in the entire process that require very adequate planning, and also control of the activities and execution, because you see, you can't plan if you don't execute. The plan will not end up achieving a lot. So it's important to see how do we connect all these dots to make sure that we deliver quality products to our customers at the right place, time, and also quality. So those are the key things that we need to look into. And as I said, I know we're in different value chains, but you can see the effect of all the activities from the time that we get the seed to the time that it gets to the shelf, or even actually to the consumer. And also one thing that we'll also be able to see as we go along is the recommendation to work with what we call market-driven production. We need to look at what does the market want, so that now we align our production to what the market wants, because that is something that we also go wrong. We don't plan based on what the market needs. So we go out there, we produce, but we end up having either excess produce that is not required simply because we didn't actually really plan and also get to know what the customers are looking for. So as you can see, as I've just mentioned, there's a product flow from the supplier to the manufacturer to the distributor to the retailer to the shoppers or the customers. But of most important that we need to think about as people in business is the information flow from our consumers. So how do we receive feedback about our products that we are taking to the market? We've spoken about retaining our customers. And one way is by receiving and collecting information about their perception, about our service levels. How are we offering their service? Are we meeting their orders on time? Because that is a key thing that we need to look into, so that we can see the gap in our supply chain. Otherwise, if we don't receive the feedback from our customers and act on it, we still continue having a very inefficient supply chain management. And beyond that, apart from the feedback in terms of how we are doing our business and offering our service to the customers, we also need to look at what they need in terms of volumes, so that we can also plan with our other actors along the chain, because it means, maybe most of us are not cutting across all the value chain. So maybe we are an actor in one. You could be a supplier either of seedlings or plantings. You could also be a distributor of products. But there's need to have that very good flow of information amongst the actors that we partner with in our businesses. Moving on, so I wanted to share this, what we call the export value chain. Of course, it's because I worked in this sector, but also is a very good case study to show the importance of supply chain management. Because you see, when you have products that are coming from the farms, you need to plan, first of all, what the market needs. So in this case, the customers on the other side, maybe I can give an example of Europe. They give us an order, they give you an indication that this is what they need for the coming 6 months, or even actually the coming 1 year. And based on that, you now plan your production. So it is also the same thing that I would encourage all of us as we discuss with our customers. Let's see how they can give us an indication of what they need, so that now we can be able to plan with it. So once you plan, then you go out there, you do the growing, in your farms. I'm sure there are those who are doing farming, so we do the farming. And then there's now the supply from the farms, transportation to our pack houses, where we pack or where we, aggregate this produce before we dispatch it again to our customers. So in this case, there is what we call the raw material index. You receive the product from your farmers, from your suppliers, make sure that it meets the quality standards, store it in the right, equipment. So another key gap in supply chain management, if you don't have the right storage facilities, it means that you are losing money out of it. And, and it could be either you have excess produce that you hadn't planned for, or maybe, it's because of other inefficient systems within the value chain. So it's important to have that good planning. So that again, you also don't affect your people in packing the produce. Again, if you don't plan effectively, you might end up having people who are in the pack house waiting for the produce to come from the farms, and the product is not there. So you end up having idle labor that becomes quite expensive for your business. So that flow is quite important. Then you have the final product. Maybe you need to put it in, again, better temperature before you actually dispatch it to your customers. So again, I used this because you see for an aeroplane, you can't change the timelines. So if they say it's supposed to be there by 6, just like the way you started this meeting, that's the time that that product has to be there. So it is you as a business person to really plan and make sure that, you meet what the customers are looking for. So I gave this as an example, and I'm sure we shall continue discussing other examples as we go along. But I wanted us to project a picture of the importance of accurate planning of our supply chain. Because if something goes wrong in just one section of the value chain, our supply chain will be affected. We end up either having quite expensive costs, to our customers in terms of not delivering the produce on time. Maybe it's of low quality, and also maybe we incur labor cost in our pack houses that is quite expensive. So it shows that as entrepreneurs, as founders of your businesses, this is something that you need to really work on at very strategic level, and you even better leave the other operations people working on now the operational plan. But I think we shall work on, we'll look into that. And the reason why I've put this, I know we will be covering them a little bit later, is the financial measures of, if you make a wrong decision in terms of the cost of raw materials, whether you're supplying seedlings, the cost could be the actual germination rate. Whatever I got the seed, the plantings from you, as I do my mathematics, I'll look at how much trees out of what I received that germinated. So that is how I work out my cost of raw materials. So if some seedlings on transportation to my farm, got dehydrated or something happened, it means my cost will go up. The same case applies whether you are receiving cocoa, from your farmers. That actual cost that you get, the end product, once you package, that cost is what matters. So you need to look at, make sure that the system is sufficient enough to make sure that you improve and save on cost of the raw materials. Also, the revenue that you're getting from the cost, of the goods that you are receiving, because I've seen most of us maybe even trying to see how best to increase revenue, but not looking at how much are we generating in terms of margins. So again, it's important to look at that. Then also the inventory holding cost. If you don't plan efficiently, you may end up having more stock than you need in your pack house. And that means maybe holding more cash, maybe even having to borrow because you have to pay your suppliers, you have to either to pay your farmers on time. So, but because you have this stock that you haven't been able to move, so you end up going to the bank to borrow some money to pay up your farmers, that becomes another cost. The transportation cost. So if you don't plan again very efficiently with your suppliers, you can send a truck to the farms and, just to come back without sufficient products. So again, that's how the cost end up going up. And I gave an example, what we did those years in 2008, 2009, we actually came together as a business, different, and actually we are competitors, came together, said, why send a truck just to come half empty? We can combine our volumes and, come up with a full truck and share the cost. And of course, with that, we're able to have more transport, a better transport cost per kg. And those are some of the things that we can do. And also in terms of having products that are also expired in your value chain, maybe you bought more stock than you need. And I think we shall look at that, reorder levels. So it's something that is quite important. As a manager, as the owner of the business, that is something that you need to know. Maybe how much stock should we be holding at any given time? So I think we'll look at all that. And also the cost of, goods that are taken back to the customers. We've seen, even you can buy milk from a shop and, it goes bad. It means that you have to take it back. So those are still additional costs that comes along the way. And those are the costs that we need to see how we can avoid. Because if you avoid and manage this cost efficiently, you'll be able to make money out of your business. So I just gave this. I know you maybe have walked through a business model canvas, but you can see the importance of supply chain management. It cuts across all the 9 building blocks of our businesses. So it may be seen as it's more of operations, looking at the key activities that you do, looking at the key resources that you need, and also the key partnerships. But actually, it affects also the value chain, how value proposition, how you're delivering value to your customers, how you are relating with your customers. Are you serving them in the right way? Are your service levels good? So, and also the channels, how you are getting your products delivered to your customers. Also, the customer segments that you're able to work with. So again, we are talking of venturing into new markets. We need to know what are the dynamics in terms of supply chain. We've seen even markets open up for us, Africa in the US, or even in China for, let's say, avocados, but the supply chain is a big issue. So you see, we need to know how does that affect the various customer segments that we're aiming to work with. How do they affect our supply chain management? And of course, we've mentioned about the costs, the cost structure that is involved in the supply chain. So we need to become more efficient so that we reduce our production costs, our operation costs per kg. And we can only do that if we are more efficient on our supply. And with that, we may end up now having more revenues because, of course, our customers are happy, they're ordering much more, and we end up making more money. So I wanted to show that because I'm sure maybe as you define your businesses, business models, you'll be able to see how it affects the supply chain. So again, when you look at the supply chain, we have various actors from the supply side, also the demand side, until it gets to the customers. Maybe you could be the one supplying seedlings, but maybe you're not the one producing them. So you're also buying from someone else, or you're buying from another agrovet. So you see, you need to see how do you work closely with those people, to make sure that there's a very good flow of information from yourself, your business, to the other supplier that you're dealing with. And also on the other side, you could also be, you're selling your product maybe through a middleman or through a trader who then takes to the final customer. And if I can give an example, like now for us in the export, we didn't used to sell direct to supermarkets. We used to have some agents, maybe in Europe. So you see, they are the ones then who aggregates the produce and then take it to the supermarkets. And then now the consumers go and buy from the supermarket. So you see, with that, there are so many actors involved. And as a business person, you need to be on top of the entire value chain and know where are things going wrong. So if, for example, in this case, like now for the export, we actually even used to put some temperature. We used to call them temperature loggers. Just from us, our pack house to the airport, it goes with the product up to the destination and know where did the product go wrong, where did the temperature go wrong. And I would encourage all of us to see how can we do that, to be on top of the entire chain, to know who the people who are involved along our value chain. It's quite important, and see how can you be able to supply them and also get the right information so that you can improve and enhance your business. So as you've seen, it involves supply chain management, involves various actors, from the supply to the manufacturing, the distribution and warehousing, retail and the consumer. And as a business person, you need to really be aware of what's happening across the chain so that you can be able to improve your business as you go along. So that is what I would encourage all of us to do. But at the start, I mentioned about encouraging all of us to adopt demand-driven production or value chain development, or business development. And that is something that we really do. And I still want to encourage all of us. Whatever you are doing, try as much as you can to estimate what the market requires. And that's how I was talking about the flow of information. It's quite important, because by you knowing what the market needs, you're able then to properly plan your supply chain. Because you see now, based on what you get from the projections of your sales that you aim to sell, and I'm sure most of us have done budgets for the year and all that. It's good to still really align that, keep checking and with your customers and see, are you within their target? Are you going to increase much more? So that now you can make sure that you really plan and source your raw materials, engage your producers, engage your suppliers based on what the market wants. Because then with that, the whole chain would then be able to go move on smoothly, from your sourcing of materials to the transportation, to your manufacturing unit, to the distribution. The product will then flow very, very nicely. So if there's something that we have to get out of this session today, is to look at your business and see how you really work on what the market requires. How do you adopt market-driven enterprise development, if I may use that point. So that is something that we need to look at, to look into. So we look at your budgets to make sure that they align with what the market wants. So as you can see, we have various actors. There is the supplier of the products, and this could be your farmers that either supply you with whatever they're supplying you with. It could be cocoa, it could be avocados, and all that. So, you need to look at maybe themselves. They also maybe subcontract other people who then supplies to them, and then they get products to you. And now at your business, there's what you're calling internal supply. There's a procurement. There's what we call the 6 R's. You need to make sure that whatever is coming to your business is of the right quality. The quality is right. It comes at the right time, from the suppliers. The source is right. If you've seen, maybe for those in agriculture, especially now here in Kenya, we have very stringent rules and regulations in terms of identifying or tracing the supplier of your produce. We need to know where was it produced, who is the farmer, how do they maybe apply chemicals, all those kind of things. So it is important that you ensure that the source of your product is right. Also, the pricing has to be right, because also this is something I used to do a lot, because we used to have issues with the farmers, maybe farmers asking for, and I'm sure you also deal with farmers asking for more for price increment, but we used to sit down with them and tell them what is your production cost per acre, and this is something also I would encourage you as producer, as entrepreneurs, did they also sit down with the suppliers to look at the costs of their production, and also how they even themselves can become more efficient. And I would say this, even when we used to have the 0809 economic downturn, we used to also discuss with our importers, and they really used to hammer us in terms of the production cost to get the pricing right. So we need to make sure that we do the same for our businesses. We get the right pricing for our products, and also the right place. Make sure that they're delivered at the right time. And I think once we do that, the other things, at the production level that we are at, I think this will be able to be more efficient, and also up to the final destination of our products as we supply them, as the distribution section, as we distribute them to our customers. And also in terms of the customers, it's to look at the target group of your customers, the customer segments and what they need, and also look at the customer satisfaction. Because if you are aiming to satisfy and to retain your customers, this is something that you really have to keep on checking most of the time. Yeah, so I think this one I had just also put it there, just in case you're also dealing with multiple actors. So you still can refer to this, looking at the raw material suppliers, the supplier one, supplier two, the product. Maybe there are those which goes through the wholesale markets before they then take it to the retail and also to the end consumer. So I think, of course, you'll be able to share this slides, and then you'll be able to see how is your supply chain, from the raw material supplier all the way to the end consumer, and where do you need to like improve on. So I think that was just for the purposes of sharing with you, and also this one, because you'll be able then to see how does the material flow. I think you've discussed that from your first supplier, how you are sourcing the products, how you get products suppliers to your section, or rather your producing unit. And as you can see there, I've indicated transport data. You need to know what is my actual transport cost per kg, of any product that is coming to. So you need to look at that. Then look at the operations at the point of you producing and the adding value addition, whichever value addition you are doing, whichever basic level or high level. You need to also look at the operating cost, per kg, the overhead cost, and also, for example, if you're using power, if you're using refrigeration, you need to look at, am I optimizing the cooling system? Because with that, if you're not using it efficiently, then the cost of power goes up per kg that you're getting. Then also look at the distribution costs, to outbound or transporting out to your customers, the consumer distribution, and then the consumer. And then, of course, I know we've spoken so much about the information flow from the customers, and also then the money, how it flows, again, from your consumers all the way to the suppliers. And of course, if you don't do the right thing, you end up having a lot of issues. And again, giving you an example with the export business, is what we used to call customer claims. You could set up a shipment, then the customer say that, out of what we supplied, 2% didn't meet the quality of what we're expecting. So you see with that, you end up having issues, you end up having delays in terms of payment coming from your customers, which then delays your, you paying your suppliers, and it becomes a big issue. So you need to be, to make sure that, you're on top of your supply chain across board. And that's why it's important, again, to reflect on this, see how the material flows, the information flows, the money flows, and see where you need to improve for your respective business. So in terms of the supply chain management objectives, is we said, I saw there's a, look at the poll again, and you're able to see that there are those who say they were looking at becoming more efficient. And actually, supply chain management is a way of becoming more efficient in terms of how you manage your inventory, the transportation, logistics across board. So if you become more efficient, I can guarantee you that you are going to save money. If you make sure that you get the product at the right time, the right place, at the right temperature, if need be, you are able to be able to save money by becoming more efficient. Then also optimizing transportation and logistics. So again, by effective planning, you don't have to set a truck to go collect produce, because I'm sure maybe there are those who are supplying or setting trucks to receive produce from their farmers or suppliers. You don't have to set a truck then just to come half empty. And if it does, the other point that we said at the beginning is that you could also be looking for strategic partnerships. And I think that is something that you can also consider. Then maybe that could also be part of innovation that we also mentioned. People are trying to see how do they share. We have seen Uber work. Maybe also could be Uber for delivery of farm produce and those kind of things. And those are things that we need to think about to make sure that we become more efficient in terms of logistics. Then the other one is, of course, quality improvement. So once we get the customer feedback, then we're able to really work on it. And I think we tend, as business people, maybe being one of them, we forget to really look at what the customer is saying. Receiving that customer feedback, it's very, very important, because we're able to know, you can set periodical, it could be every quarter or every 6 months, sit down with your customers, know where you are going wrong in terms of your supply chain, and make sure that you're able to improve as much as possible. Then, of course, maintaining long-term stability of your business. It becomes very, very easy once you have a very trusted supply chain across board. So you're able to continue growing your business. So in terms of the goals, I think I know I've mentioned this so much, but of course, those are the things that we need to do, is to make sure that we get the products at the right place, the right time, quality, quantity, and pricing. And I think those are things that we need to keep on reminding ourselves as we continue with the day-to-day operations of our businesses. So, of course, the benefits, there are several benefits. One is inventory reduction. Once you have very efficient supply chain management, including knowing what the customer needs, then you don't have to overstock. And we have seen, even for those who have agrovets, maybe overstocking particular chemical in their store, only just to discard it later, because you see they didn't really project what the market wants. So it helps you by having a proper supply chain management. You can reduce inventory. You can also improve productivity. We said once you have people have the right quantities in your pack house, have the staff becoming more labor efficient because they have the right materials that they need. They are able to work on it, so they're able to become more efficient. Even personnel reduction. Once you're more efficient, you may not need so many people, because if you get the materials on time, maybe you don't have to get extra people working on the products. Then, of course, the general cost reduction of the of procurement. Because if, for example, a customer required a product, then you supplied 50% of it, then you have to set another 50 of it. You are the one distributing. That means that your cost, goes up. If so those are that is what that means. Then we also have a higher customer satisfaction, because now they're able to get the product just exactly the way they need it. Then, of course, there's also the increased profit. Then on-time delivery, fulfillment, your customers are happy, your revenues goes up, because then, as we said, we need to retain our customers. So by doing this, we're able then to increase our profit. They can refer other people to us. Then there's also better cash management, because you don't have, maybe you're not holding so much stock than required, so you can efficiently manage, your cash flows, so that you pay your suppliers on time. Then better order management is another thing. Logistic cost reduction, your cost of logistics goes down, and also the financial close cycle improvement. So there are quite a number of benefits that we get once we have, an efficient supply chain management. So we'll be able to look at how all this affects, or rather, what meets or aligns with your business. So again, this was just another summary, so you can be able to look at that and see how best to apply it in your businesses. So that is still another, was an additional slide that you can check during your own timelines. Now, let's go to the other important point in terms of then how do you go about implementing supply chain management in your businesses. It's sort of still like a project management, and how you also bring on board all your stakeholders to make sure that they supply, they're involved in the process. So the first thing is the concept phase. So you're looking at, you need to assess the supply chain opportunities that are there. Look at again at the chain, and that's why the earlier slides had some the actors who are involved in the whole value chain. So you can look at the opportunities that are there. Then develop a vision. Of course, as a business person, that is something that you need to do. You need to have a vision for the business, and of course, then even the supply chain comes in there. Then the conversion phase is where you then develop a strategy. Sit down with your stakeholders. Could be your business. Starting of course with the internal team, and also involving the other stakeholders. Come up with a very clear strategy, and see how best then again you put a better organizational structure, a structure that then supports you in meeting and delivering that strategy. So it's very, very important. And also the information, you need to communicate to your stakeholders. It's really quite important, and seeing how best you make sure that all your stakeholders are on board with you and they are working with you. And then with that, it's now only the execution, because you see, planning is one thing, executing is another. So you need to see how best do you make sure that you execute your supply chain management. And looking at the whole, planning and all that. So we, as the business people, as the founders, as the entrepreneurs, maybe you could be more at the strategic level, looking at long-term planning, beyond 1 year, because of course, there are so many things that goes also to supply chain management, also knowing where do you have the factory, where do you have the production centers, So I think that's where we are at as business owners. So it's very, very important to be fully involved in the strategic direction, designing the supply chain, how it will be for the long term. And also then from there, with your senior management, look at the tactical, this is the medium-term planning, could be quarterly, could be monthly. How do you have the production, production planning? If, for example, you're growing vegetables to supply to the market, you can have a 3-6 month, production planning. So that is actually what it means. Then there's now the day-to-day operation, the short term, the weekly, the daily, planning. That is what we call the operational, just in line with the normal, management structure. So again, you need to make sure that all those things are aligning and very well done. So that is the process. We start from strategic planning, demand planning, the supply chain planning, the procurement, manufacturing, warehousing, order fulfillment, transportation. So as a business owner, as the entrepreneur, you need to really look at this and see at each and every step that you don't skip. Of course, customizing it according to your business requirements. So the reason why I said about the planning, especially at the strategic level, you need to know if you are going to have a new plant, or rather could be a production unit, or where you collect or aggregate produce from the farmers, where will it be, the size of that, pack house, the warehouse, if we need to have a warehouse, the delivery models, do you lease trucks? Do you buy your own trucks, for transportation? Those are things that you have to do at the strategic level. The IT, we mentioned about innovation. This also could come in. And I'll give an example. If you want to be effective with your producers, with your suppliers, could be farmers, maybe you need to have an extension service. So initially, we've been having people going to the farms, but can you have an IT solution that can actually guide the farmers? With that, maybe they're still monitoring, you're still seeing what is happening, but of course, you are at a lower cost. So those are things that maybe you need to look at as a business person, and also the transportation cost modeling. So those are just examples, and of course, you will see what works in your business. I had provided for a template here. So again, you can adopt based on your business management process, how to execute. So again, that is just a sample which you can do, or rather you can adopt for your business, the delivery, making sure that also your managers become responsible, and how you account based on the activities they're supposed to undertake. So again, that is a template that you could adopt. So this is just a summary, an explanation of what we've discussed. Maybe if you want to refer to the notes, that is there in terms of the strategy, the planning, and also the looking at the organizational strength. So that is just a further explanation. So the other one important aspect is on sourcing now the products. So you need to know, what the cost center, what you're saying, the spend category. Then look at the supplier market assessment. Just a minute. Yeah, the supplier market assessment. So this is where, in any business, as a business person, you need to keep, your eyes and, ears out there to know what's happening with the supplier market. What are the new trends that are happening, within your market? What is going to affect your business? Are there regulations? Are there laws? Those kind of things. That is something that you have to do as a business owner. Then, of course, do the supplier survey, doing some due diligence, potential suppliers who can supply to you, all that. Then, of course, building the strategy. So once you do, just like any other thing, if you're doing a business plan, you have to do an assessment, market study and all that. So it is still the same thing. Then you come up with a strategy. Then after that is when you set out the request for procurement, and then now communicating with your new suppliers. So this is just a chain that we adopt in terms of onboarding new suppliers who supplies to you. So again, this is just a bit of additional information. So if you do want to refer to the notes, so it's also provided for, just to understand what we mean when you talk of understanding the cost centers for what you aim to onboard suppliers for. Then the market assessment. So this is just as I said, you're building a business plan. You also do a market study. It's the same thing when you're looking at the suppliers. You need to look at assessment of the supplier market. Looking at, are there substitute suppliers? If you already have some suppliers, you still need to look at, are there other suppliers who can supply to you? Look at the dynamics that are there in the market. Look at the product's design. So again, we've provided for another key tool and another issues that you can also look into to make sure that as you do this assessment of your suppliers, at least you have a bit of a guide that can guide you. Then after that, once you do that, is then look at the all right, the supplier survey. So again, it's also important, especially that because I've seen a lot of issues, especially with like farmers. So you agree with farmers, they're going to supply you with a particular product. They could be avocados, it could be cocoa, or whichever product. But sometimes they don't. When the time comes, they don't supply to you, and it's an issue that we've been having, even in places where we have contracts. Some farmers don't even still honor the contract. So as a business person, of course, that then calls for a long legal process. You need to really do a lot of due diligence for your suppliers. Look at, are they feasible, their capability, are they able to supply, the maturity in terms of the volumes that they can deliver, the potential capacity. So it's important just to really get to know who are your suppliers, especially if your markets are very strict. If, for example, if you don't supply, they're going to either charge you an amount. So it's very, very important to make sure that you engage the right suppliers so that you don't spoil your name with your customers. So it's quite important. And again, this provides you with a guide. And then after that is where you set a request. Because we've seen every year, most of the businesses, sending out call for quotations, trying to onboard new suppliers every day. I'm hoping that all of us one day, if we are not yet there, we'll get there. Where every year we are onboarding new suppliers, sending out requests, and people, expressing interest to supply you. And then after that, you then select the most competitive and then communicate with them. So as a business person, that is something that is quite important to do that. And you'll be surprised if you continue to do this, even your existing suppliers, they're able to then even improve their service because they know if they don't supply the right quantities and all that, next year I will not be in business with this particular company. So it keeps them really motivated to do best and better. And with that, you're able to have a very, very efficient supply chain. Yeah, so the order fulfillment process. So this is something that also we sometimes forget to also check. So you get the customers, they have placed the orders, especially maybe if you're exporting to a different nation, they give you an order. We sometimes forget to check the credit for those customers. And sometimes we even, maybe either fear them. Sometimes I've seen people maybe even losing a lot of money because of not really asking the hard questions when it comes to checking credit worthiness of the customer. So it's quite important to really look into that. Make sure that you look at their history, if they can refer people. There's also platforms maybe that you can also be able to use to check that. Because you see, if something goes wrong here, you supply produce to them, they're not able to pay you, you're not able to pay your suppliers. Now it comes to a lot of issues. So once they create their credit worthiness, then from there you can then check your inventory and then now supply the products. So I wanted to highlight that it's really quite important to make sure that you really check credit worthiness of your customers. And also, as you discuss terms of engagement, you need to make sure that you also have an engagement, especially in terms of payment, by which date are they going to be paying you? Because that's also something that brings issues. If they don't again pay you on time, you're not able to pay your suppliers on time. So those are some of the things that you need to look into. The payment terms is really quite important. And also maybe check at the terms. If you have a contract, read it through. Maybe the others will say, once you set an invoice, we'll pay after 30 days or after 90 days. So it's quite important to look into that. And I'm saying this also from experience, not just in my horticulture business, but of course, other areas in terms of even supermarkets not paying on time. So I think it's a concern that has been raised. So it's important to make sure that you sit down with them, because whatever they do also affects you paying your people on time. Yeah, so the other key element is, of course, on logistics and information technology, looking at the transportation medium. I know we have from different nations, we're using different strategies or models for transportation. So there could be some transportation challenges that we need to overcome. So we need to look at how do we put mitigation measures on time. Sometimes maybe it is going to rain. I'm sure like maybe now some nations are raining, not able to get products from the farms. So what do you do? We need to have mitigation measures in place on time so that we don't compromise our customers. Then if you can leverage technology to improve on the supply chain, if you can use digital platforms, we have seen them work in some of the areas. Still, I know pretty new, or rather still nascent in Africa, but I think we'll get there as we go along in terms of leveraging technology for, especially now our farms. I know on maybe the passenger is okay, but now in terms of the agriculture, in terms of what we are doing as restoration enterprises, maybe it's still not yet there, but we could see how best to improve on it. So we have different channels, as I said, based on our different nations. So again, you can see how to improve on what is available within your nation and to make it much better. So transportation challenges, these are different, again, based on the various nations, the economic uncertainty, especially like where we are at. And that's why I posed the first question. We are heading to somehow, recession in most of the global nations. So, what does that mean when it comes to people ordering? They are not ordering much more. So you end up maybe having trucks which are not, moving a lot of volumes. So a very high cost of transport. So you need to see how best that can be overcome. Treaty and laws, there could be some laws, especially now if you're exporting. So again, how best we come with that. We still have changing transportation industry, new things coming up, maybe fuel going up, which maybe is beyond our control. So we still need to see how best to mitigate, those issues. The improvised technology, globalization, labor laws. Maybe your work involves people working at night, sometimes working for long hours, leading to high costs. So you still need to see how best to align to the various laws, labor laws, but of course still, meeting what your business would look for. I think I've mentioned about the fuel prices. I know there's something that is really affecting most of the businesses even right now. So, we still need to see as a business, how do we overcome that issue? How do we partner with people that we can even hold, we can sell our produce together, we can sell our products supply the products together, to save on the cost of transport. So I'm saying this because I've seen it work. So those are things that we could see how best to do. So the information strategy, again, looking at the ICT, how you involve it, it still goes to as normal planning, the strategic level planning, the planning at the operational level, and so it's still the same thing. So again, this just to show you the whole structure of supply chain management, how you can use it at advanced planning phase, and also the transport and inventory planning. This now from the manufacturer, as you can see, the manufacturer is blue. So maybe there you're doing advanced planning at your factory. And then for the distributor and retailer, you're doing transport and inventory planning, which has to be done very, very efficiently. Then the operational is the main, maybe the monthly planning at your pack house or where you're producing at, the transport execution, and also the warehouse management strategy, the CRM. So this one is just to give you an idea of maybe the kind of systems that you can have in place to make your work much better, including the customer relationship management platform. So that you're able to receive feedback from your customers and all that. And I'm sure at the end, we'll be having a question to know which are the key areas that you think maybe your business need to be supported on and all that, or where you need to improve on.
I just want to share that this is an interesting chart. And I wondered, it's an interesting chart because I think it shows all the different things that people can expect to use. Like if they aren't using already, it's kind of like making people aware of the different tools that are available. So I think maybe a question I might have just quick, just to jump in and have a question is, how could people use this particular slide to identify a way to improve their business?
So I think what I'll do is I can do a bit of additional notes. I know I hadn't put a lot of notes on this, but I'll be able to explain to them, provide more details. But as you can see at the top, it shows the supply chain management, that now cuts across the entire chain. So from there, there's advanced planning at maybe this at the manufacturing level where you are, supplying, or rather you are producing or adding value. If you have a pack house or you have a value addition unit, you need to have advanced planning, so that, because it's complex, you have to know how many people are required, the transportation that you need, there's quite a lot that goes, because it's a very broad, and I can provide a bit of more information on that. Then, of course, the transportation and inventory planning, there are different tools that you can use. Some of them are even accounting systems, accounting softwares that actually even comes embedded with stock management. So you're able to use them there. But again, there are those maybe that could also be very advanced. If you have even like a line for production, it's able to detect how much volume is required, how much you've used, and give you a stock at the end of it all. So I think what I'll do is I'll provide a little bit of more information on this and how you can use it, and also maybe some potential systems that are out there that you can also be able to leverage on for your business. When it comes to the operational, when you see the CRM at the customer level, is this customer relationship management, just a platform that can support you to get the feedback, communicate with your customers, receive feedback, and all that. All right. Is that okay, Amanda?
Oh, sure. Yeah, perfect.
All right. Yeah, so the other final phase is now the planning and forecasting. So I know, as I said from the start, most of us maybe have a budget forecast. So what I would request is to also consider demand forecasting to know what the market wants, sitting down with your customers, just to estimate. So that again, I know, yes, well, that is what you used for the budget, but I keep on reminding people it's important to still look at it so that you can really be able to, come up with, or rather work with figures that are very close, maybe 20 plus or 20 minus, plus or minus 20% thereabout. Then, of course, the sales forecasting, once you see the demand, what the customer needs, Then you can then project how much you're going to sell. And then now you start to manage your operations, your supply chain. And then finally is the production planning to make sure that you also then meet the customer requirements. So that was still just a bit of looking at what we need to do to make sure that we forecast the right way. And again, here is a table that you can use, and I'll still share this. You get this, and you can see how the budget forecasting. Of course, I'm sure you are doing this, but you still can be able to look at that. That is still maybe in terms of graphical representation, the sales, how the sales will be. Maybe last year, this year, what you're expecting is quite important to as you plan the supply chain. Then this thing is also quite important, the master production planning. This is something that we usually forget. We don't really do it very efficiently, and we end up having a lot of issues. So it's quite important to have a production planning. If you can for the whole year, then now you cascade it down, to quarterly and then to monthly, because with that, and also to the weekly, because with that, you're able to make sure that you meet what the customers need. And I think, as I said, we are different organizations, so maybe you can then see how to customize based on this template that is provided for here in this presentation, which we share. So that was mainly for a weekly. Then also for the year, you can still do for the whole year, which is also quite important. And this is also in terms of cost, in terms of value. So you can also be able to do that to make sure that you don't have issues with your customers. So the inventory management, so we have seen, of course, that it involves us working with the wholesalers, customers, manufacturers. So it's sort of a cycle because you see, we have to involve all these stakeholders. So I think the exercise is for us to go out there, think about who are our customers, how do we make sure that we meet what they need. If we are working with the wholesalers, the same, they are distributors, it's quite important to see who are these key stakeholders, because we have to partner with them as a key component on our business model canvas is partnerships. And, this could be some of the people that we are working with. So we would be looking at how best can you improve your relationship with the various stakeholders. Now, this is another thing that is also quite important, the economic order quantities. And this is what leads to us having maybe excess produce that we don't need, or other raw materials that we bought from the farms, from our suppliers. So we need to look at what is our reorder level point. We need to look at the various aspects that we need to look at is, of course, the order quantities that we're getting from our customers, the demand, and then from there compare that with what we need at any given time, and then add what we call the lead time. Lead time is the time that it takes between you placing an order with your suppliers and the time that they supply. Maybe it could be, they say for the cartons, if you are packaging things in cartons, they say, give me 7 days. If you place an order, I'll supply you after 7 days. So you still need to see, based on the volumes that I have, the quantities that I have, how will they also meet this lead time? And also the same happens to your customers. Unless maybe something that is happening on a day-to-day basis, if they are giving you also supply lead time, so you still can also look into that, so that you make sure that you hold the right volumes at any given time, so that you don't have excess or a lot of excess or even shortages. So, and that is why it's important to know what the market wants, demand, then now work backwards and know at what volumes should I have in my pack house, how many trees should I have in my nursery at any given time, so that I don't have excess or, so those are the things that, again, you have to look at it individually with your business and see how best to make sure that you have the right volumes at any given time. Yeah, so once we do all that, is then to look at the performance measures. So as the entrepreneur, as the founder of the business, you need to always look at performance measures. I know we call them maybe KPIs and all that, but there are those which are financial and those which are also non-financial, as you can see. I know we had touched a bit on the financial measures. So looking at the non-financial is, like we said, the cycle time, the supply chain lead time. This is the time that I think I've just explained this. What time does it take, between you placing an order with your supplier and also them delivering? And are they meeting that? So that is one criteria that you need to use as you're selecting your suppliers. Those who meet the lead time, could be good to go, could be good to work with them. And, that is a sort of a non-financial measure that you are doing as you evaluate your suppliers. Also, the order to delivery lead time, again, the same thing, the time that it takes or you are given by your customers to supply to them. So it's also quite important to know, are you meeting it all the time? As you're discussing with your management team, are you meeting that lead time that you're given by your customers? So this goes two ways. Your suppliers, the lead time, are they meeting it? And also your customers, are you meeting it as a business, the time that they are given you to supply a particular product? So there's also now the customer service levels. So, you can see some of the missions of businesses saying is to exit. One of their mission is to exit the customer service levels. So this means maybe you don't have stock out rates. You're meeting the orders, maybe whatever they have given you, you're meeting their service level. Maybe if they have requested 1,000 trees, that is what you supply. If there's a negative, maybe it could be plus or minus 10%, you can agree with them. So those are things that we have to look at as we're looking at the service levels, because that is how our customers evaluate us with, if you are meeting what you're supposed to deliver and on time. So the other non-financial still on inventory is looking at, the raw materials, how we are using it, maybe the work in progress. This could be if you are actually involved in the value addition. Maybe you have some stock that you have just added some value, but you haven't completed it. Again, how much time is that taking, the finished product? So this is part of the, yes, there's a way it still comes to like financial, if it goes now to the red where you are losing money, but it's also the amount, looking at based on your targets that you have in your pack house, in your production unit, you still can look into that and see how much raw material should we have at any given time. That is really quite important. I remember even in our pack house, we used to actually, that is something that we used to check like every hour to make sure that we don't have maybe excess of products, work in progress, and we then end up not or losing the products. So those are things that we need to look at. So I know this, we touched it at the beginning, things to do with the financials, the cost of raw materials, and as I said, the cost. If, for example, you are being supplied to with avocados, your actual cost is not maybe just how much you are buying at, but even including the pack house yield. You need to divide it. 1 ton, and out of the 1 ton I got from the suppliers, I was able to get good product that I shipped, maybe 800 kgs. So your cost is to work out with that percentage of the 800 as you look at the actual cost per kg. So we need to look at that. I also mentioned if it's trees, you need to look at the germination. That is how you can identify what is my actual cost of the raw materials. So this gives us, and it's quite important to look at all the elements when it comes to the costing, because sometimes we end up making mistakes when it gets there. I think also the revenue, I had spoken about that, inventory holding cost. If you end up borrowing money to pay your suppliers because you have stock that has not moved to your customers, that becomes a cost, and it needs to be avoided. Also the transportation cost. So again, you need to be efficient, see how best you can improve your cost per kg of transportation. Then I also mentioned about the cost of expired perishable products. Products that maybe have gone wrong or rather bad in your pack house, in your premises, just because of, they were not supplied to the customers on time, or maybe they didn't meet, or rather you had more than what the customers needed, so that becoming a cost. I also mentioned about the cost of goods returned by the customers. If the customers complain and the cost, becomes too much, that again affects your financial performance. Though in some businesses, I know we actually even factor that as we are doing the costing, maybe a 2%, a 3% of those pair of returns. In some businesses, actually, that is what sometimes we do, because especially now, if you're dealing with perishable products, things do happen, and maybe you're not able to meet all the requirements of the customers, and you end up having some claims, what we call the claims. Yeah, so the common problems of the supply chain management, and this is something that I really used to do, because I also used, before I became the operations manager, I used to be the internal auditor, and we came up with a lot of issues that we could have along the chain. And if there's something that people makes money very easily, is the supply chain. Especially if you're involved in processing, something that you can't really be able to quantify 100%. If you received avocados, knowing that this is the actual yield that I get, from the avocados or from each other product, is usually a major theft of the raw materials, either at the farm, as they get the produce from the farm in transit into the pack houses, in your pack houses. So that is one thing as an entrepreneur, you need to really be on top of, to make sure that there are no gaps, you're not losing products out of that. There's also the transaction errors. Maybe the records are misleading. So those are things that we actually used to have. I remember we actually used to have an electronic system to receive products. And, people had tried to maneuver it, and, because you used to stack maybe 7 crates of products, they could do it within very few seconds. And, you could imagine how come it has, within 1-2 seconds, it has, been clicked twice. So those are some of the things that, even if you have a very elaborate system, you still need to be on top of your game to make sure that there are no errors, and of course, combining that with the theft. Then there's the information delays, maybe information that is not relayed to you on time, that may continue affecting. Maybe the customers either didn't place the order on time, then continue affecting your entire chain. So we still need to look at that. Misplaced inventory, maybe that it happens, especially maybe in the farms. I remember I used to have a lot of issues with that. So you still need to be able to manage that. Spoilage, maybe the products losing their level of ingredient, nutritional levels, especially those maybe involved in food products. Products losing its value. So those again are issues that we used to have, or that are there even right now, that need to be improved. The product quality and also the yield. Maybe how much you're getting per acre, if it's even nursery seedlings, if it's the avocados, how much per acre. So those issues are also issues that need to be looked into, and also visibility in the supply chain. So you need to make sure that you are able to know what's happening across the board, because those are issues that, again, if you look at very advanced manufacturers, like let's say even the cooking oil, they actually have a system that tracks even in the supermarkets. So they already know in this supermarket we have these volumes of products that is moving. They have sold this amount, so we need to replenish by this volume. So maybe we can all be able to get to that level at some point, so that you can be able to be on top of your products. Yeah, so those two are additional problems that we can also be able to look into. Maybe again, depending on your business, poor delivery status of information, then the issue of the cost, the accounting system to not capture the opportunity cost sometimes, the opportunity cost, maybe if the product that was supposed to be supplied, don't supply, then you lose that opportunity in terms of you getting products sold to your customers. So those are some of the issues that also emanate from the supply chain management. So I think with that, mine is to let you know that what you need to focus on is work on your unique audience. This is the customers. Look at the promise that you're promising them and the mechanism that you're going to do through the supply chain management to satisfy their needs. And so I'm done, and I'm now looking forward to receiving your questions and answering them as much as I can.
Sammy, So are we wanting to do the second poll, or are we looking for some questions? I have some comments.
I was looking for some questions, maybe. That's what I had mentioned. Any questions?
So if there are questions, people can put in the chat box, but actually you can raise your hand or unmute yourself. We understand the thank yous, but can we not send the thank yous in so that we can see the questions if there's any that are coming through?
Yeah, I'm waiting for any questions. All right.
Maybe as we're looking for questions.
Yes,
Amanda? Yeah, I was going to suggest the poll as well.
Exactly,
so
yeah.
That's actually the same link. I just need a second to pull it up and put it into the chat box. So everybody who's there, if you could please take a look here at the poll this time. We've got a couple of questions towards the end, and we'd really love your help doing this. So unless you have a question, please refrain from using the chat box at this time so that people can have a chance to take a look at the poll. And I might ask Fabiana, or you can as well, Sammy, to copy that poll link and keep posting it in, as people will probably bury it with comments, and that's okay. That's just what happens. But if we want to keep getting people towards the poll, we'll need to keep pasting it into the bottom of the chat box. So Fabiana or Sammy can do that. Anybody can actually do it, but I would appreciate some support there. Perfect, thank you.
And maybe in the meantime, I see a good first question.
Perfect.
Trying to find it again. Essentially, this is, expensive, and there's many different steps for a startup organization. Where to start? Like, kind of what are the most important places to start with supply chain management for a startup?
Right. So that is why I think we had proposed this question to know what do they think they need to do in the short term to be able to deliver value to their customers. That actually was the basis for this question. And, because of course, I know they are at different levels, and maybe there are different areas that they need to look at. But of course, I'm assuming that all of us have customers. So the most important thing is to see what do the customers need, and now from that, work on like a bit of your strategy. Because whether you are in a small business, I think I'm a very strong advocate of having a business plan. And, I know, yes, we have a business model. So it's the same thing. You need to have like a strategic plan for the supply chain management and how best to, to be able to deliver value to your customers. And so that was the basis for this question, to know, what should we focus on? Is it the strategy that we need to have in place? Is it focusing more on the supply, the sourcing of raw materials, and to make sure that we improve on that? There could also be at the processing point of level. So I think this would depend with where we are at as a business, but I will still encourage all of us, let's try to see how we can have, even despite how basic it would be, based on our level of business, to have a bit of a small strategy, aligning how do we get the supply done from our suppliers. If we're involved in processing or value addition, how do we get the product into our factory or into a processing unit? How do we manage it? How do we have stock, the order levels? How do we manage the stock on a day-to-day basis to make sure that we are using it efficiently? So that is also, that's something that we need to work on. Then logistics from our premises, where we're adding value, taking it to our customers, or if you're going direct to the customers or taking it to another distributor. Again, it's quite important to really align that and see what else can be done. Then the other one is, of course, your customer, because as I said, most of us, they have the customers. So I think the immediate thing is to ask yourself, what do the customers need? Have a session with them, see how best you can have a way of getting information, not just on what they need, but how you are supplying them. Agree with them, is it a 3 months, maybe a poll, or rather a discussion every 3 months or every 6 months. Basically, that is what I do even for our business and all that, just to get to align with our customers. So it's quite important.
All right, Sammy, so we've gotten 39 people to answer a poll so far. We've got 118 on the line, so I do expect more people to be filling that out. We're going to keep this up here so you can see live how the things are changing along. We did see Gadi with the hand up, followed by Bertine. So Gadi, I would like to invite you to share your question.
All right, hi, thank you very much for letting me ask this question. I just want to ask you, how do you deal with the problem whereby sometimes you have got the demand is low, but we as a, for instance, we have got a product which the raw material has got a very small period in the year. For instance, I can just give an example like avocado pears. Maybe I've got only 4 months or 6 months to process them. So last time they're ready. But then by then, when you process something, the demand is low. But whenever the raw material is low, it's not it's not ready, the demand is high. How do you manage to balance those two? I know sometimes even it's so hard to kind of like, you need to have a very big warehouse to store them, but you can't manage to store all of them. There's a short period whereby the raw material is ready when the demand is low. But when the demand is high, the raw material is not there. How do you balance that? How can you go around that? If you understand my question.
All right, so I get your point, and it's the same thing. Avocado is a very seasonal product, and also happens in Kenya. I think we just held maybe last shipment April or even last month, or rather May. So I agree. I totally agree with you. I know the issues that you are talking about. So in terms of having a lot of excess products within a very few months of the year, and yet we don't have the market. So I think this calls to you discussing with your customers, because I'm assuming most of these do not supply maybe to within your nation. Maybe part of it is actually exported. And because what we used to do, I can assure you, even like now in our context, we don't have maybe avocados being lost because the demand is actually very high. So it's just to see how do you sit down with your customers to make sure that during that period, when you have the excess products, they're able to take as much as they can. Because what I've seen happen is that people are trying to use different ways of refrigerating it, storing it for a longer period. So you may not have the capacity to do that, but maybe your upfront customers can actually be able to do that. Because you see, maybe some of it go by sea, and they're looking at how to store it for a longer period. So they may have the potential to actually store for as long as the demand, they'll be able to get the demand. So I think for that, it's really sitting down with your customers, looking at how do you reach out. I know we spoke about diversifying the markets, and this is actually like one way, reaching out to your customers, looking at, telling them this month we expect to have a lot of volumes. What can we do? Do you have the capacities to store a lot of products? Because I've seen not just in avocados, I've seen also happen in potatoes. So customers, buyers are willing to have very big storage facilities, so they are doing the same. So I would recommend sit down with your customers, tell them that this particular month we have excess volumes. What can we do? Because I'm sure during those periods you can actually cover maybe the profit for the whole year. I've seen that, of course, work in our Kenyan context because I've worked in that space, and so that is how we used to do. Yeah, so you will see even businesses working with just those 2-3 months, but actually covering the cost for the whole year, including going out to the farmers, and supporting the farmers during the off season. Yeah, so it depends with how you engage with your customers.
All right, thank you.
We have Burton, who is going to be asking the question now. Burton, I'm not sure if it turns out to be French, people will need to select English in order to hear it. So please go ahead.
Oui, je disais, je suis Bertin Ikumbu.
Yes, my name is Bertin Ikumbu. I'm in Libreville, Gabon. As far as managing the chain, management chain, with the outburst of COVID that happened and each of us, we suffered from it, will it not be wise for us entrepreneurs while doing our planning activities to also factor in such events? If such events happen, how can we manage our management chain to avoid to close our businesses?
Well, sorry, I think I didn't do the translation. Sorry for that. So I'm sincerely apologize.
I can summarize the question.
Hear? Okay.
So essentially it was with events like COVID and other big disrupting events, how can entrepreneurs factor in these sort of events? Should they factor in events like COVID, like, you know, wars, other supply chain disruptions?
Wow, I think that one is a major one because of course some of these things maybe are actually beyond our control, and I think that's why as a business sometimes you have to insure your business against adverse measures. Of course, maybe that is to make sure that you don't get out of business. You know, because just like COVID, maybe another key issue that we have is the climate change and weather patterns. So I've seen most of the businesses, what they're trying to do is to make sure that they are insured against those calamities, you know, because some of these things are actually beyond our control. We may not really know when they'll strike, but the best thing would then to see how you can insure your business so that if such a scenario happens, you don't get out of business, you know. And I'm saying this because I've seen a scenario whereby even you could have, you know, the whole crop affected by the rains. But because we had like insurance, you know, we could be able to even get some money to compensate some of our customers. So those are things that, you know, I've seen work, and I would still encourage you to see if your country has such kind of a system. I think that would be the best option because I've seen it work and used to insure against those calamities to just take care of our costs.
All right, this sounds great. Maybe we should go to check out some of the answers here, Sammy.
Yes.
And what would you say from you as an expert looking at some of these responses? What does this show you, what you're seeing here on the screen?
All right, so we are saying that the highest one is on supply chain from the raw material sourcing.
Yes. So that's
yes.
On average, people are saying that they feel like they need to take action necessarily. So some of that immediate action they really feel like is on the raw material sourcing and delivery. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I think that is one of the key areas that I know is has so many issues that happens at the supply chain. Because as I said, as you are looking at who are your suppliers, you need to do the due diligence. I'm sure maybe this is also based on the experience of the respondents with their suppliers, maybe not meeting expectations, maybe not having them pay on, maybe having issues paying them on time or them meeting your expectations. So in such a scenario, what I've seen And of course, this one also depends with various nations and regulations. I've seen some of us, some businesses have contracts with their suppliers, but what they do is to make sure that first of all, before they enter into those kind of agreements, is they make sure that they know what the market wants, so that whatever they are committing to, they already know what the market requires, and then now work backwards with their suppliers. So this one still takes us back to this overall strategy that you need to have, because of course, once you look at the strategy, you also look at the supply chain. Yeah, but it shows that we seem to have a big gap in terms of strengthening the supply of raw material, the sourcing amongst now our businesses and our suppliers. And as I said, could be issues with how we are relating with them, how we are building a relationship with them. It's really, really important. We need to see how best we can somehow offer them the right information in terms of what we need, and work with them through the various planning phases, and supply them with the right, So I think that is what we need to look into. I've seen also the processing again, is also a key concern, which we also need to look at. How do we receive the materials into packing areas? How do we use it efficiently? Which kind of a system can we have in there? And before I forget, on the supply chain, this is where I was talking about maybe extension services, having a digital platform, looking at what the suppliers are supplying you with. So I think those are areas that we can see which kind of technologies that they can do to enhance and strengthen the supply chain. Then the same at the processing unit, I see some integration of technology to see how best you then make sure that you receive products at the right time from the farmers, and supply it and process it at the right temperature and all that, and manufacture, and then distribute it. So I think, again, technology can be applied there, and those are things that you can be able to look into, look at the lead levels that you're given by your customers and suppliers to make sure that you meet the expectations. The logistics, again, and distribution, another, a key concern because of transport cost being high and all that. So we still need to see maybe how best we can look at that. The customer level, having a better system to handle complaints, returns, and also how we can discuss and engage with our customers. The customer relationship management is, again,
So I just want to say that all of these things that we're listing here, if we can go back, Sam, you weren't in this session, but I want to take us back to one of the original sessions that we had with Looney, where we talked about Tuesday innovations, the need to try something new. Now, have you been able to do something new in your business every week and see if you've gotten better, see if it's made a difference, if it's something you want to change? The idea of trying something new every week and see if it works will make your business more strategic and give you that edge. So here in this presentation, I think we've seen hundreds probably of new things that you can try. And with this question, the question is, maybe you can't try all of them at once, but you want to recognize as a business owner which ones you want to try first and why that's important to you. So I just wanted to emphasize that this supply chain management is all about business innovation of your business fundamentals. So don't get overwhelmed. This presentation is going to be yours. It's available on Restore Forward within 24 hours, if not sooner, after this presentation. You can refer to it and decide which things you want to focus on. So I just wanted to share that with everybody. Mm-hmm. And we did have a few more questions that I put on the poll that have now become available to everybody. So if you have the poll open, you should be able to go to the next question now and check out some of the questions I have there, which is, we've got 2 people respond so far. What is something you'll change based on this session? And so while we've got 3 people, responses are coming in. The payment mode, when I will be supplying to customers, and when on credit payment time has to be agreed on. So you've already inspired people to look at their accounts payable and their accounts receivable policies. So I think that during this discussion, every entrepreneur has probably seen something that applies to them and they're like, oh, I could do that better. So I wondered, let's see if there's any other ones we have here. We're going to change our marketing strategies to use new approaches to reach more customers. So that was one of the ideas that you had, Sammy, as well. And another company is going to look into warehouse logistics and customer management and create their timelines for their payments. So people keep responding to this, and I'm not sure if there's any other questions that have come up in the chat box, perhaps while we've been working on this. We've got another vote of thanks from Bonaventure. I think it's saying that the theme was very well developed and he really loved the presentation. So thank you, Bonaventure. At this time, I also wanted to take, oh, yes, Fabiana.
I was just going to read another question I found in the chat.
Perfect, go for it.
Okay, this one I'm translating from French. We live in a context where the conditions are not met in terms of infrastructure, energy, etc., and therefore the cost for the supply chain management is high. Do you have any advice, examples of suitable management for such cases?
Right. So we are saying that maybe some of us are in countries maybe where we don't have a very efficient infrastructure. If I got you right.
Yeah, I can. Do you want me to read the question again?
Yeah, why don't you try that?
Okay, we live in a context where the conditions are not met in terms of infrastructure, energy, etc., and therefore the cost for the supply chain management is high. Do you have any advice or examples of suitable management for such cases?
Right. Okay, so maybe even for us, there are some areas that we over the years it's only that maybe we've gotten better roads, better maybe energy recently, but of course we used to have a lot of issues years ago, even from the farms where we get the produce from. We don't have better roads, but of course what we used to do is to see how can we have more and better improved mode of transport, sharing infrastructure, sharing the logistics. And I give an example because of course, because of the infrastructure, maybe you're not able to get out of volumes, but we could collaborate amongst different companies and see how best do we use, maybe even if it's one truck, to go to an interior place and come full of products. So that is a strategy that we actually used to do. Then the others that maybe they don't have even access to inputs. So again, through collaboration, we could see how best can we amalgamate different volumes. Then we supply it to these inputs to our suppliers, at a bigger volume, and then they're able to get and produce. So because you see, we could look at for us to become more efficient in those areas, there are ideal places to get products, but maybe the infrastructure is not working. So we could see how do we work together as a team with the various, they are actually competitors, but we used to do that so that we can optimize that region. So those are some of the issues that we actually used to do. That is in line with the logistics. For energy, maybe I haven't seen a lot in terms of if maybe there's power, but from maybe having renewable energy as an option. So those are things that I've seen in the farms do. Maybe have, if for example, you need to irrigate, so that you can have products supplied consistently to you by your suppliers. We could have like, solar energy, pumping water from the boreholes. So those are some of the innovations. And I'm sure right now we could be having better innovations, including now how to communicate with our farmers. There are digital platforms that can be used. There are actually the mobile platforms that we can use to reach and support our suppliers, our farmers in the regions that are not very accessible through maybe an internet platform. You can use USSD. Yeah, so I think for that, it depends with the, looking at how you can work with other people. And just to be, also to let you know, these things you can't be able to do it maybe on your own. You need to see how to collaborate with other people. And I'm saying this because I'm also involved in bringing many entrepreneurs across the world to support one another. So that is something that I would encourage. If you are faced with those kind of challenges, maybe work with your stakeholders. They could be your competitors and maybe even the government officials to see how best to unlock some of those challenges.
Thank you for that question. And any other questions? Let's see. I actually, going back to the slides here, we've got a few more people who have commented on what they're going to be changing. They're going to increase their collaboration, investing in marketing and promotions, warehousing, change our distribution so that it will be efficient. And I also put this portion up here if people had any additional questions for you. And so let's just scroll through these, and if you see anything that is, what do you call it, something to speak about, you can speak about it. You know, you can just take the question and speak about it. Let's see. Anything good here? What factors do you use in rating suppliers and customers' priority? In which supplier or customer is it important so you can deal with them especially? I think that's talking about prioritizing using your time and resources.
Yeah, and also for the rating for the suppliers, as I said, you need to look at the service levels, how you have worked with them before, whether they commit, whether they dishonor the agreements that you have. Those are things that you need to look into as you're doing the same. In terms of the customers, is to see if they pay you on time, and if they are new customers, do they have a credit worthiness, and how can you get it even from their bank? So those are things that you can do as you do the rating of the suppliers and also the customers.
So qualifying who you want to do business with so that that won't become a risk in your business. It's kind of like if you're selling to someone and they literally never pay you, that's not going to make you rich. You know, if you keep doing it again and again, you'll have to have a conversation, say, listen, I can't provide you anymore. You're 3 months behind. So when you catch up, we'll work. And in the other moment, you can focus on clients that are going to be paying you. So I think it's qualifying your customers ahead of time and looking and seeing what you can learn about them if you need to. I had this question here in the middle that seemed interesting to me. Any tip, and then we can check out Rockin after this, any tip on how we can predict the sales during production? So I think it's really just how can you predict the sales and what can you do? Because, you know, I think a lot of times if you're farming, you try and grow as much as you can, as high of quality as you can. So maybe predicting the sales is not useful. You know, maybe it's just let's get as many buyers as we can. So maybe this depends on your business model and what happens to your product at the end when you're ready to sell it. But nonetheless, the question is there, how can people start to predict their sales? What are some tips?
I think this one I said, as I mentioned during my presentation, is we need to see how we can adopt market-driven production. And this is usually sitting down with your potential customers, you know, seeing what they need. This is the system that I've seen work. And not just in maybe in our case, maybe export business, but also the local market. So I've seen even if it's potatoes, you know, the farmers, the producer groups, sitting down with processors to know what they need so that they can actually plant according to the requirements. So that you don't, again, because that is where we actually go wrong. You know, we overproduce, but we don't know where to take to the market. And maybe the same farm, we could have maybe produce 2 different products and take everything to the market. So I think there, the tip is see who are your customers, discuss with them what they need, and now plant according to the requirements. That is what we've been advocating for many years now.
You're on mute, Amanda.
A lot of people have been asking for attendance sheet because that is where they can actually provide some feedback as well. So the attendance sheet is in the chat box. So please just take a look at that. And we did have a question from Rockin. So please go ahead. Not sure if Rockin, if you're available to unmute yourself, but you are muted. So if you start talking, we'll be ready for you.
Yeah, just I wanted to just a clarification with the abbreviation of SCM. What does it mean?
It's supply chain management.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
Supply chain management. Perfect. Yeah, I know there's so many acronyms to keep track of for sure. That was a quick question, a quick answer.
Yes, yes.
Let's see if there was any other kinds of questions here that might be useful. Let me see. Are there any ways to use Microsoft Office or Google to help with any facets of supply chain management? That could be one.
Yes, yes. Actually, you can, even including building a very robust production planning. It's something that you can do through Google. So, you know, many years ago, that is what you used to use Excel worksheet. So you can start with that. You need to start with tools that you are actually within reach, and now improve on it. So, yeah, it is possible.
All right, thank you. Let's see if there's anything else here. I think those are some of the questions that are useful. Hold on, let me see if there's one here. Do you know of any strategies to increase market retention? I think they might mean to keep customers coming back to you.
Yes, and that is why we said in supply chain, one important thing that you need to look at is the information from your customers, getting feedback from them. Are you meeting their service levels? Do they have issues? And all that. So that is you going out to them to seek that information so that then you can be able to improve according to what you have an agreement with in terms of service levels, because that is the only way you can make sure that they come back to you all the time. So it's really having an open line with them, discussing with them, getting feedback, and improving on their suggestions that they give you.
Perfect.
On areas of improvement. Yeah.
Perfect. And of course, you know, you can do that. It depends on your business model. You know, maybe you're selling thousands of things and you can send people a survey that they can fill out afterwards. Maybe you're only selling to a couple of clients, a lot of product. You can have a meeting with them. You can ask for a meeting with them to talk about things. You can send them a few questions via email. You can, you know, there's a lot of different ways to connect to, like I would say, to collect, that information. And when you get that, you have to think of the creative ways to give the customer what they want as well. And there's always the chance that a customer will not tell you exactly what they're thinking because it feels uncomfortable. So you always have to read behind the lines and also think about what other customers, what other companies, competitors are doing and how you are better than them. So I would say sometimes it's proactive as well in reminding people of some of the benefits that working with you provides them. Different ways to remind them of the benefits of working with you. I see we've got Anne Grace with a question. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. It was very good. How do they manage the supply contracts from the farmers? Because sometimes you have those contracts and then they don't honor them. How do they manage that?
All right. So yeah, I know contracts, I had mentioned that with the farmers, sometimes it's very, very tricky. They don't honor, it's been a big issue. But maybe if we can give an example with our country, Kenya. So we have the Ministry of Agriculture now involved. So when you sign a contract, when you sign an agreement, so there's also a place where the Department of Agriculture also signs off. So if you have any issues, so they're able to follow up. So that is one of the mitigation measures that has been put now in our Kenyan context, just to make sure that we encourage our farmers to honor the contracts. So I think that in your case then it means reaching out to the government officials. Maybe you could also borrow some ideas for what you've been able to achieve here in Kenya and see whether it can be done maybe in your area. So that is one thing that I've seen really work in our context right now.
I would say in one way, your farmers are also like your customers. So you could also try and collect information about why. Now, maybe you can't just talk to them directly and say, hey, why didn't you sell to me? Because they're going to be very embarrassed. They're going to feel really bad. They don't want to talk to you. But maybe there's a different way that you can find out why they sold to somebody else. Maybe you can ask a friend to ask them, or somebody else in the market to find out why. Was the other person paying more? Was the other person using mobile payments and that made it easier? Was the other person offering them additional services that you weren't? So I think that there's going to be a reason. And maybe the reason is as simple as they came to my house 2 days before you did, and I needed the money right then. So I'm not sure what it could be, but I think if you try to find creative ways to find out what's happening, then you can find creative ways to connect with your farmers and provide them what they need in order to work with you, if possible. That's my idea. I don't know. Sammy, what do you think? Because you've actually worked on a farm. Mm-hmm.
Actually, that is what all the reasons you mentioned are actually the reasons why farmer side sell. Maybe they want immediate money, immediately, just the way you've put them. And, we did all the research, we discussed with them, very openly, and saying that we're going to honor, for example, okay, I'm not saying just as me, but I'm saying the industry processors. And, if they reach now to that point, we better then see how to formalize this agreement in a more better way. And that is why they have been able to go to that, direction. Yeah. So I think having it a little bit more formalized, I think, is the best way forward. That is what you've seen in our situation, and it's actually working.
Yeah, thank you so much, Samuel. In your case, it is really working, but for us, it is very different. I'm actually from Uganda. The challenge is sometimes even the processors or the aggregators come and actually contract the farmers to produce. And when it comes to time for buying, they disappear. So the farmer remains stuck with their crop, and it's a whole challenge. And I've not even seen anywhere where government has come in to, for example, get involved in signing the supply contracts. So it's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, I can relate to that, Anne, very well, because it was two-way. It was farmers complaining the exporters or processors are not honoring their agreements, and also the other side, some of the processors saying farmers are not complying, and now that's why the government had to come in as the middle ground now. Yeah, so that is how I know we actually used to go through those. What we are going through, Anne, is how we also used to go through it, and we only succeeded. Of course, we have not sorted out the problem. It's still there, but at least it's improving day by day. By now already having more formalized, so that in this case, because the government is involved, they're able to say this person didn't pick my volume, so they actually, were forced to pay, or rather have to comply to that and pay you as a farmer. So that is how we have seen it work. And I think, as Amanda was saying, it's really sitting down with all these people and seeing how you also on board a bipartisan party. In this case, could be government or any other actor that you can bring on board.
Yeah, I really love this question. I think it's so important. And, maybe there's a platform that can really increase your communication with the farmers to say, we're coming tomorrow. Like, are you on board? I don't know, but I feel like increased communication is going to always help. Mm-hmm. So we do have 5 minutes left. So this is the last call for questions. However, we want to thank I want to thank to Sammy Kariuki so much for joining us and sharing about supply chain management. Sammy, would you like to let us know if and how people could get in touch with you, or for what purposes? You can share us that a little bit with us right now, and we'll be sure to help with that.
Okay, all right. So for me, you can either get me through WhatsApp. I know maybe most of us can share my WhatsApp. Yes.
Sure. If you're saying WhatsApp, that's great. We'll take note of your number and put it onto Restore Forward as well.
Okay. I think I had shared that on my presentation, so they will get my contacts over there. Yes.
Okay, perfect. So it's on the presentation.
And also the email, yes.
And Sammy, so when you give this presentation, just one final question for me. What is something that you find like that you really hope that the entrepreneurs get from this and change or improve? What do you think is like your number one hope?
Yeah, I think for me, the parting shot, I think it's first of all, let's adopt market-driven business development. Whatever we are doing, let's anchor that to what the market needs. And, because with that, you can have a very smooth supply chain management. I've seen it work, and that is what we're also championing for quite a number of value chains that I also work with. So we are trying to support that. So even in your businesses, try to see how best to adopt that, because once you do that, the other things comes very, very smoothly. You're able to know how to engage suppliers, how to engage transporters, how to pay your farmers on time. So I think that is one thing that we need to look at. Now, the other key important thing is collaboration and partnerships. So we can't do it alone. We need to see how do we collaborate with all our stakeholders along the value chain. So those are things that we've also tried to do to see how best even we can have platforms, even per value chain where stakeholders come together, they discuss the issues and see how best to address them together. So that is another thing that we need to look at, so that we can unlock so many things, because some of the issues that we are facing in terms of supply chain are beyond our control. There may be infrastructural, so we need to involve government, and you can't do it alone. So you need to see how do you champion this with your other stakeholders involved, maybe in your line of business. So that is something that you need to look at, and how to collaborate and broker partnerships with various stakeholders. So
perfect.
I think those are things that I would recommend.
Okay, that sounds perfect. So along with those final lines, then I want to put in the chat box here. We're talking about partnerships. So you can join our WhatsApp group. Sammy, you're invited to join if you want to. We've got the WhatsApp group link. Most people are joined already, but in case you're not, I just want to put it there again, open it up and join us. We've got the Restore Forward group where all of our recordings and PowerPoint presentations are. If you didn't get to be a part of that yet, please join us. Again, Sammy, you're welcome to join. And then we've got the attendance sheet just one more time. So yes, partnerships, can't do it alone, and look at what the market needs. Some of the changes you could make are, as Sammy was saying, the right quantity, the right place, the right product. So you might, as you were saying, diversify and try different products. You might try and process your products differently and market them. So all those 6 R's are ways that you can respond and become a market-based business. Because I think when you're market-based, Sammy, I think what you're saying is you will find that you will sell all the products that you create. If you really look at the market, like that's hard, right? It's really hard. But if your goal and you're trying to collect information, you'll get closer to it. So you'll actually become more profitable through selling more of your products, having less inventory, and all of these things. So this has been a really cool presentation. I mean, we really thank you so much. And the next session that we have is going to be Thursday. I've had some people direct message me. We're going to start sharing our pitch presentations. And everybody who joins us is welcome to provide feedback. That's going to take up about half of our session on Thursday. And the other half, we've listened to you guys. So we're trying to do our own customer information. And you guys wanted more networking. So we're going to have at least half an hour on Thursday for networking. And so we hope that you'll join us, and we'll break up into small groups. During networking, we will encourage you guys to either share your pitches with the group or to share your website, where you can literally share your screen, take people to your website, take them through a few of your pages, and you can get some simple feedback from the group. So what you want to do for Thursday is show up here, have your pitch presentation or your website ready to share for feedback. And I think people will find it interesting in the small groups because you'll get to know people in a smaller setting in a more intimate way. So join us on Thursday, and we'll be sending you around our information for next Tuesday as well. So I wanted to say thank you one more again to Sammy. Also, thank you to our interpreters, Joelle and Patrick. And thank you again to Fabiana, who was really great at fielding the questions and keeping us moving around and on track. So thank you all so much. And we hope you have a great afternoon and evening for most of you. Sammy will be in touch. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you.
Bye from Malawi.
Bye bye.